Hey, everybody, it's Jess here from Oh Really Podcast. This is an exclusive members-only episode for our OG Patreon members. You know how much I froth talking about vulnerable, challenging, and spicy taboo topics, and creating a safe space for these conversations is my goal. It's a really scary thing to be so open on a public platform, especially when discussing so many vulnerable topics. That's why I've chosen particular episodes that only our exclusive members can listen to in full. If you are not a member yet, don't worry. Here's a little teaser coming up for you. To access the full episode and support Oh Really Podcast, click the link in the show notes to join my Patreon community. Your support means the world to me and helps these important conversations grow. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Oh Really Podcast. My name is Jess, and I'm your host today. And hopefully you've listened to the other episode that Lochee and I just did, because this is now part 2 of, having a herpes diagnosis from a guy's perspective, but we're launching into the kind of the dating world, the sexual world of like post-diagnosis. And it's a huge topic in itself, which is why this is now a second episode. And we're going to hear so much goodness and vulnerability and everything from a guy who's gone through it himself. And I'm going to throw some of my personal experiences in there as well. So get vulnerable with us, everybody. And welcome back to Oh Really Podcast, Lochee.
Hey, thanks for having me back. Round 2 feels great.
Oh, so great. And I think everyone can admit that even just hearing you talk, you've got so much confidence when it comes to this space. Look at you. You're on a fucking video, audio, podcast talking about having a herpes diagnosis. How does that make you feel?
I feel great. I think after the first episode, it's pumped me up that much more. And even the process of getting ready for it, you feel so much more acceptance for yourself, so much love for yourself. And I think that self-love translates to confidence. That's ultimately what confidence is. It's sort of self-love that you just project onto other people. And I think that's such a great thing. Jess honestly spoke such kind words to me, and no point where you just do it. You were just hey, I'd love for you to do this thing, but it's all about you. Here's what I can say for you to build that confidence in yourself to want to do it. And for me, it was just no brainer. I'm either all out or all in. And Jess convinced me to go all in with just her sage words of wisdom.
No, I'm so happy. As I said the last episode, it made my heart very full. I was because it is a big deal, It's a big deal talking about this stuff in a very public platform, plus adding a little video to it and all this stuff, so scary. And as I explained to you, you feel really fucking empowered within yourself when you do actually share these vulnerabilities. It can do so much positive stuff for your mindset. If you're in a bad mindset, honestly, even listening to this, I guarantee you're going to be in a better mindset after this episode. But it really comes down to just being open and honest and being fucking authentic, because that is how you slay in this world. Honestly, you slay in this world by being your true self. And vulnerability is a superpower, as I've said before. Let's dive into, I guess. Yeah, go.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off there while you're on a roll. But just as you were saying that, something just came to me. I had a memory of a friend who shared something really vulnerable with me. And I'm not going to name names, so I'm not going to tell you about who this person is. But this person I was friends with had a nude leaked in high school. And then they came home and they were like, Mom, I'm so upset. And I'll get to the point where it relates to herpes. But they're like, Mom, I'm so upset. This is going to ruin my life. How am I ever going to go back to school? And my mom was just so it's just a picture of you naked. And that's a pretty fucked thing to happen in a high school. That's messed up as it is. But in a small town high school, my mom was like, look, you get faced this one or two ways. You can go to school really shameful, head down, or you can go to school with head held high and be like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. And she went to school the next day and the girls went, oh my gosh, did you see your nudes around the school? And she said, yeah, and how good do I look?
How powerful is that? And that's the right attitude.
Absolutely is. And I think that's so powerful for anything. I think the way it relates to herpes is just you could be shameful and head down about it, and people see that, and then it contributes to that negative stigma. But if you have your head held high and be like, it's a part of who I am. I live with this thing. I can't change this about myself, nor can so many other people on this planet. Hold your head high.
Yeah. We'll definitely go through, I guess, tips and tricks in this episode on like wording and how we disclose and stuff like that. But it's very individualized, I think and this is what I explain to people when they're like going on dates with people and they're like, when do I disclose and blah, blah, blah. Like it really is so individual to like your personality, the other person, how you're vibing, how the dates have been. Like there's no one answer fits all, right? You just have to just fucking do it. Like honestly, you just got to do it. And what I've learnt from my personal experiences is the guys that I'm telling and the people, as you get, guys can tell, like I'm a heterosexual lady, the guys I'm telling, they are so impressed and so like, they actually like me more than before I told them, because they are so impressed at the fact that one, I've put them first and I've opened up and I've said a vulnerable thing about myself, but they respect the fuck out of me for doing that. And we actually are stronger, like whether we're just dating or seeing each other, like I've actually, like they really respect me. And that's like the biggest takeaway from this is like having somebody look at you and go, wow, like, thank you so much for like sharing that with me. Cause like they understand that that's a really hard thing to do. Right. And you're putting them first and it actually shows that you're a really fucking good human being.
Exactly. You just hit the nail on the head. Absolutely, Jess. And hell yeah, they should respect you. Like that's I don't like to use the word brave. I like to just say like, it's just empowering and it's just like a decent human thing to do. Like for a human that wants to feel loved or in any form to another human, like it's just the right thing.
Yeah. And it's showing your future values of being in a relationship, right? So if you're going to be open and honest and express things like this and be respectful towards your partner, whether it's vulnerable, whether it makes you uncomfortable, they're only going to look at that as something great because, whether they decide to continue being with you because you've got herpes or not, that value and that trait of showing someone that you want to be in a relationship with, that you are like that is nothing but amazing and positive and such an amazing attribute to bring into the world of dating. So you need to remember that. Like, yes, they could actually have a big think about it and you could have great discussions about it and they might say, I'm just not comfortable and I don't want to pursue a relationship. That's like the worst fucking thing that can happen. They're not your person. One thing I always say to people, and this is like a huge thing for me, is like, if a guy can't accept something so simple like having herpes, how are they going to cope in a relationship where maybe I get pregnant and we're excited, we're going to have a baby and I have a miscarriage? Right? Because that's real fucking shit that happens. And that's another episode in itself, miscarriages, because that's huge and people don't talk about it. How are they going to cope with that? Or, what if I lose a baby? Or what if I get cancer or he gets cancer? Or what if, his family member dies? There are so many things like bankruptcy. There are so many horrible things and stressful things that happen in life that you have to go through with a partner. And if they can't even accept this one little thing about you that you've been open and honest about and you've shown them that amazing trait of being open and honest, how the fuck are they going to deal with all the other crap? They're not the person for you.
Exactly. Like I said, they aren't a consequence. They're inevitable. But all these other real life things like that can actually happen that have so much worse consequences for your life, they're what you should be worrying about. Not necessarily worrying about it, but if they happen to you, they're such a bigger deal. Like, why add to the psychological stress of a relationship of just by worrying about these small things? Like, it's a part of being human that we have these things. Most people get it in their lifetime. You're so right. You just hit the nail on the head there.
So, and as I mentioned before as well, there is no one answer in this episode that we're going to be covering. I feel like there's good tips that you can share with each other and say, this is what I say, this is what I do. And that's great. And it's good to listen to these things, but it's very individualized and you just got to take every situation. And like, I'm an open book. Lochee's come to me many times to ask me for advice. And people listening to this, you're very welcome to DM me and ask, I'm in this situation, like, what would you do? What would you suggest? And if I am busy and I don't have a lot of time, I fucking love a voice memo. I'll just voice memo you and say, hey, do this. This is what I would do. And if it helps, then great. but it is very individualized to the person and the situation. But I guess, how was your very first experience?
Very first experience, post that partner where I found out my diagnosis, it was quite a few months, like at least 6 months before my next sexual partner. And I messaged you actually, like before going to it. I was so nervous about what to say, and I built it up so much in my head. And we'd actually been chatting, like, this is while I've been overseas, and chatting a lot to this girl, and the tension was building up.
I remember this story. Oh, so this was the first. That's right. This was the first girl. Oh my God, it's all coming back to me. Yes, continue.
I was surprised, but it took me so long to just like find my self-worth again and find the courage to do this. And I remember just being like, you were just like, hey, just be honest, just be straight up, get to the point. She'll really appreciate the honesty. Just like you've been saying, like, it's such a good marker. And I just followed that exactly. I was just like, hey, I really like you. And if we end up, you coming back and one thing leads to another and we have a lot of fun, I want to be completely honest with you and let you know that I have HSV1 and I get cold sores sometimes. But hey, I actually haven't had an outbreak in a long time. But I just want to be completely honest with you and straight up. How do you feel about that? And it's so funny because I beat around the bush so much. I didn't say it that well. I say it that well now, but then I did not say it that well. I was just like stuttering and so nervous. And then she was like, oh, fuck, Lochee, I thought you were going to break up with me. This is so much better. She was like, oh, yeah, my mum gets cold sores. That's cool. Like, I thought it was worse.
But like, she would have honestly respected the fuck out of you for even just like bringing that to her attention, right? And I do remember, you guys had a lovely weekend together.
We had a very good time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember getting the messages about the very good time. Honestly, I feel like, and this is what I always tell people as well, is like when you're disclosing, right, you do really need to make sure your mindset's good, right? You need to accept your diagnosis, okay? Because if you are in a phase of your life where you're like, I'm so shameful, I'm in this horrible dark space, no one's going to love me, and then you go on a date with somebody, people sense your energy, right? So if you are not accepting of your own diagnosis and you're not in a good headspace, people vibe that. And if you are then trying to explain like, oh yeah, I've got herpes, and if you act like this is a shameful thing because you feel shame and you're like, going down this, rabbit hole of saying, how awful it is and you don't want to give it to them and blah, 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 of course they're going to be like, whoa, Jesus, this sounds like a death sentence. I don't want to be a part of this. Because, the delivery of this conversation is very important, but, it's just your mindset and it's just about vibes, right? But it's not going to be perfect the first time. It's absolutely not. And you're going to learn from every experience. And you're going to be like, okay, next time I have this conversation, I'm going to do it like this. And I'm going to maybe try this out. Like I used to act, I don't like the word frigid, but I don't know what other word to use besides frigid. I hate the word frigid. I think it's a very negative word, but I'm just going to use it for the context of like what I'm trying to explain. So when I go on a date with somebody, like this was back in the day, if they showed me any type of touch in terms of like even holding my hand or anything like that, I would internally panic. Like I just would be so scared. And I used to put out vibes like that I just like wasn't kind of interested in them because it's like I wasn't putting out, flirty vibes. I wasn't relaxed. I was very like in my head and, they're trying to express to me that they like me and they're attracted to me, but that would just freak me out even if I really liked them. And that was because internally the whole time I'm like, when do I tell him? Do I have to tell him now? Wait, do I tell him before I kiss? Like, what happens if we kiss? What happens if we kiss and then we're going to go into the bedroom? Then do I have to stop in the bedroom and then say I've got herpes? And then you go through this horrible thing in your mind. And then, you're putting that out there. And then once I say it and they're like, oh, okay. All of a sudden, my entire body would be completely relaxed. I'm so flirty. Like I'm an actual physical touch person. I love physical touch and I love quality time and I love all that stuff. But it's like, even my love language was completely different because it's like I was like so scared. And as soon as I told someone and they were fine with it, oh my God, I was like, touching their knees and then giving them a hug and like so much more myself. But then I recognized that and I was like, okay, I got to work on my vibe here because like, it's just, I'm all in my head. So you've really got to work on your vibe before telling the person, but it's not going to be perfect. But it sounds like yours is very successful.
I mean, I love what you said just then about how you present yourself. Like, people do get such a sense. And like, when you were speaking about that, like, I just heard this quote in my mind that I think about, and it's like, people can only love you to the depth that you love yourself. And it's like, if you go out not loving this thing about you, how do you expect anyone else to love that thing about you as well, or even like that thing? If you don't like that about you, and you're very shut down about it, like, you just can't let them into that world. But as soon as you love yourself, regardless of that, like, that opens up the possibilities to people liking and loving you for all aspects of you, even your herpes diagnosis. And they're, like you said, like, it takes that off you. It empowers you. It allows you to be who you actually are, that flirty person who loves just like that quality time with the person. And honestly, the sex is so much better when you're just like that open and empowered.
Absolutely. Do you agree that when you have sex with somebody and you haven't disclosed, because we talked about this in the first episode, that some people do have a lot of shame and they don't disclose? Do you feel the quality of the sex is different between not telling somebody and having sex with them versus telling them?
Easy answer, absolutely. I don't connect. I don't feel like I fully am in the moment as much, because I'm thinking about that. And if you're not in the moment in sex, and I feel like the experience is almost a bit wasted. Like, I'm a person who likes to be very connected at that time, and it just doesn't feel that way. Your mind's elsewhere. You're not enjoying it, and the times when I have been open and vulnerable, so much better.
I agree, honestly. And it's because you've also got to think about sexual experience, right? For male and female. More so, I feel like, I mean, you said you didn't enjoy it as well, but for females, we really need to be in a relaxed state in our mind to achieve like good orgasms and to get, proper horny and things like that. If we're, got things going on in our mind, we're not present, the sex isn't going to be good. So if you're not feeling relaxed with somebody, and that's just it should be a well-known thing, right? But if you haven't told somebody and you haven't disclosed and you're having sex with that person, it is going to affect your sex life with that person. And you're not going to be able to fully be yourself, embrace, have amazing orgasms, enjoy what is amazing. Like, sex is so amazing and everyone deserves to have such great sex. So, I do urge people to just have the conversation, because you're actually going to have way better sex by having the conversation. And it's only ever going to be a positive, right? The only thing that people are so scared about with telling them is rejection. So let's talk about rejection. People need to get the fuck over rejection, okay? It's going to happen. I know it is so fucking scary, but you're going to get rejection in every facet of your life. Dating, career, like friendships. You're going to experience rejection. It's just another little form of it in the dating realm. And you're not going to get rejected just purely from the herpes. They may have not even been that keen on you anyway. It's just like, maybe they've said it's the herpes and they don't want to end, like, they don't want to continue things, but it's just because they weren't vibing you really as a whole anyway. So they're just like, nah. And that's fine. That's just dating, right?
Exactly. I mean, like, say you're a person who's had a life before herpes and a life after herpes. I'm sure you've got rejections before herpes, and then for you to go into like dating with herpes and be like, it's all the herpes, but you've just completely forgotten about that past life. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that if you don't have herpes, like, you have a 100% success rate with dating, and then you get herpes and you have like a 10% success rate. Like, you're going on a date with somebody and it still may not fucking work out. Like, I'm still fucking single, and it's not to do with the herpes. I tell you that. It's not to do with the herpes. It's to do with the dating pool. But that's another episode. But
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But, rejection, if you think about it, right? I like to think about the worst case situation, like worst case scenario. And I do this as a nurse, right? So when I've got like medical things happening and I've got a patient that's presented to me in emergency and I'm thinking about things, I go, what's the worst thing that will happen? And then I think about like, what can I put in place to, in case that happens, so that this person is okay and this person is safe. That's how my brain works, right? Worst case situation, telling someone you've got herpes, right? And I'm going to be a little bit dramatic here, is you think they're going to be like, ew, you're so disgusting. Oh my God, you must be such a slut. Oh my God, how many guys have you been with? You're disgusting. I don't ever want to see you again. Bye. And I don't think anyone has ever. That's the situation that used to be in my head though. That exact situation. They'd be like, "Oh my God, you're such a slut.
Absolute
Oh my God, you're disgusting."
Yeah, yeah.
But that's never happened.
No, absolutely not once. Like, I totally feel you. Like, thank you for bringing that up. Like, that's such a, like, it's so accurate. It's the be all and end all picture in our mind. But not once have I ever had someone blown up. Sure, I've gotten rejections here and there, like, but hey, like, that's part of life. It's going to be about herpes. It's going to be about some other thing.
So you've never had a bad one, right? Have you ever had one that's just like blowing up and just, gone to town? Like I've never experienced that. I've never had someone, and like, why would I go on a date or why would I gravitate sexually towards someone who has that personality type, right? I would never. So then I'm never going to experience that, because you can tell that in a person if they're going to like be that type of person. That's a terrible type of person to even want to be with. So why are you having sex with those people?
Yeah, I think one time it's happened where I've had a girl over and I've told them as they've gotten in, sat down having a conversation. I was like, "Hey, got to be honest with you about something," and she's like, "Oh, thanks for letting me know. I don't want to get that. I don't want to risk any chance of it. Any chance we can still be friends?" And I was like, "Yeah, but here I had a chance to educate," and actually we had a bit of a chat about that. We spent another hour or so just like sitting up talking about it, and we're still friends now, which is awesome. But I was just totally respectful. I got an Uber back to her place, and I was like, "No biggie. I've been protected."
Yeah, it's like it's not that big of a deal, right? Was this a hookup or was this a date?
It was a date, and coming back to my place. It was like a first date. Things were going really well. I left it until we got back to my place, and then we sat down and had the chat.
Yeah. So I think this is a good time to segue into, I guess, the disclosure part. And the biggest advice that I give to people is like, one, they always ask me about online dating and telling somebody online before meeting them. What are your thoughts on that?
So we've had this chat before, and I totally agree with what you have to say. When we first started talking about it, I was like, "Oh, what point do you tell them?" Because that's so freaky. It's like, what point in figuring out that do you disclose? And it's just like, you haven't really given them a chance to get to know you if you disclose it before you even meet them in person. Like, if you are chatting to them online, they have such an easy out. Like, that's not fair on you because they don't know you all in a person, and they just have an easy way to say no. Like, most people on dating apps are finding reasons to ghost because they don't want to have to go into, dating is, it's not always easy. It requires a lot of work. You got to get ready for dates. You got to go out and find someone nice, and if it goes well, you just got to have all that confidence about you, and there's so much that goes into it mentally. So people are already looking for ways out, and I just think if you don't wait until they get a real sense of who you are to make it like their own decision, you're making the decision for them, and that's not fair. So I absolutely disagree with telling them before you even meet them in person.
Yeah. And this all comes from experience as well, because I was really unsure, and I had told guys online, and this is why, I really tell people I'm against it. I say don't do it, because yeah, you're right. They don't know your personality. They've got no idea who you are. I also say it as well because, one, you're already sexualizing the potential relationship, right? So you're on a dating app because, I mean, yes, everyone wants sex, of course. And if you just want sex, I'm going to be doing an episode about casual sex. So it's all about casual sex, nothing about dating. It's about how to have conversations and navigate just having sex. Okay, so we're gonna cover that. But if you are telling somebody online dating for the purpose of actually dating to have a potential partner, you are already sexualizing yourself, especially as a female. But as a guy telling a girl, you're already sexualizing it as well, which a girl is not going to receive that very nicely. They're going to be like, God, is he just expecting sex on the first date? Fuck. Like, I feel like you shouldn't sexualize something on a first date. And then with a first date, and everyone can do what they want. If you're vibing really well and you go back to the house and you think, yes, you can have sex on the first date. That's fine. But I feel like in the world of herpes, I feel like you should have a first date, feel the vibes, and then not disclose or have sex on that date. And the reason is because I want you as well to go away from that date and actually assess, do you like that person? Because you actually might not like that person. You know, it's hard to tell with just one date. You know, do you actually like want to be with this person? Do you like what they're putting out? Do you like their vibes? Would you feel open to telling about this? I always say, whether it's the first, second, third, fourth, whatever date, I always wait till I've had a sexual connection. So I wait until I've had a kiss, whether it's just a peck, whether it's a make-out session, something that makes me actually think to myself, I want to sit on this guy's face. Like literally. And that's how I always say it, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
If I'm going on dates with a guy and I really like his vibes and he's putting out great energy and I'm actually like, I want to have sex with this guy. Like, and as I said, like I say, when a guy's face worthy is like, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell them this is my time. So the conversation that I do with, I mean, this could all happen on the first date and that's okay. But I wait till I've had the sexual connection first because I've ticked all the boxes, right? And I know that I want to have sex with that person because it's not about, do they like me? Oh my God, are they going to reject me? It's not about that. Do you fucking like them? Do you like them?
That's so it. That's it. That's so empowering. I love that you said that. Like,
Yes.
that's actually something I'm thinking like, wow, I'm going to start implementing that instead of thinking, shit, like I have to impress them, because that's all the thinking on my end. But like thinking that, taking the power back into yourself, that's brilliant.
I know, because people honestly, that all they do is think about, what if they reject me? What if they don't like me? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, whoa, hold up. Do you even fucking like them? You have to remember that. You have to bring it back. And that's why I do the joke and I say, do I want to sit on his face? Do I like him enough? Because I don't sit on guys' faces unless I like them, you know, and I have a good connection with them. And unless they tick that box for me, I'm not going to disclose something vulnerable about myself. And I can tell anyone about this. It's not about not like being scared to tell guys now. It's about knowing like, yeah, I want to. This is what I want to do. So I'm going to tell them a bit of vulnerability about myself. And as I said before as well, like if they don't accept that and they don't like that, that's okay. That's fine. And I've had very, very respectful rejections before. And yes, it still hurts. They could be the most respectful guy ever in the way they've rejected me. And it does still hurt. It does sting a bit because no one likes rejection. It's uncomfortable. We don't like it. But that's their decision at the end of the day. Everyone has the right to make that decision. Everybody. But then also, you know, you can use it to educate as you did in your situation. Education is very powerful. But then also when I mentioned before about there are so many other things in life and relationships that are going to be hard. And if they can't overlook something like this, they're not your person to be able to get through those things in life.
That's just so well said. I just snap, end the video there, cut, drop the mic. That's bloody fantastic. That's just for anyone, that's just great life advice, I think. Regardless of if you have herpes or not, I just think you take that into the dating world, you take that in your stride, and you're really good. The only thing I'd input there is when I would, like with HS, because you have HSP2, I have HSP1. But my main concern was like, do I have to tell it before I even get that opportunity for a sexual connection? I think a lot of guys and girls, any type of person who has HSP1 might be like, do I have to disclose it before that? And we just talked about the statistics before, and was it the last episode?
Yes.
We did the statistics. It's just so low. There's so many other things that would have a higher risk. I think it's like if you take your antivirals and you wear a condom, and everything else is all good. And asymptomatic was the other thing. Male to female transmission is 1%, and with all that for females, it's like 2% transmission risk. So I reckon it's good enough to, take a swing at a peck to see there's that sexual chemistry there. And then from there, you can be like, you can have the conversation. And I know that's scary because you're like, oh, I've already kissed them. How can I now have that conversation after that? It's like, well, you can educate them to be like, hey, this is not that big a deal because I was safe and I had you in mind when I was being safe. And now I want to be even safer by educating you and also being honest with you, which is so vulnerable and so sexy. We were talking about how sexy vulnerability is.
It's very sexy.
I think everyone loves it.
They actually do. And we'll definitely cover that because it's a very, very sexy thing. For kissing, people have to be mindful that like, people go to clubs and can make out with like 5 dudes in one night and 5 girls in one night or whatever. I feel like, to me, morally, if I had HSV1 and I had 0 symptoms, I had no tingling, I understood, whether I feel cold sores or not, I think I would be okay with, with having a kiss, not hot and heavy, go crazy, but it's fun to have a kiss, and I feel like somebody won't, be mad at me for not telling them after that first kiss. I think that's okay. And so like, but you got to think what's your morals? You have to think about it. If you want to tell someone before having a kiss, that's okay. But also, I think this is a nice segue into how to disclose that, because I think a really beautiful way to disclose something like that before kissing somebody is saying to them like, hey, like, I've been wanting to kiss you like this whole day. I just like really like you. But you could just say like, oh, but I feel like I'm getting the symptoms of a cold sore and I don't want to put you at risk. So that's why I haven't kissed you, but like I've been really wanting to fucking kiss you. And that opens up the conversations. Everyone knows what a cold sore is. They're going to interpret that as like, oh, wow. Like, okay, one, they like me because they want to kiss me and they've told me that. That's really cute. Okay, they got cold sores. Everyone knows what a cold sore is. You don't have one physically on your face, but you're being aware of the symptoms, and that opens up the conversation of HSV.
That is absolutely it. Like, that is so perfect. I haven't even used that, and I'm going to be using that 100%. Like, that is so perfect because like everything without lines, and it's like honest and it's vulnerable. Allows the conversation to expand from there, and you can just like take it easily without feeling so nervous about getting off your chest. Because you got it off your chest at that point where it's so early, but you've also got rapport with the person. And I think that's brilliant. I think just whoever's listening, just keep taking notes. I hope you brought a notepad for these entire episodes, because Jess is bringing out gold.
I'm bringing out all my gold this one. And I'm going to now share with you what I say before sexy time. And I've told you this before because this is what I tell everyone. And it is, absolutely, to me, it works really well. One, as I said before, I've already gone on dates with this person, so I know I like their vibes. I've had the kiss. I know that I want to sit on their face, okay? I'm going to bring it back to that. I want to sit on their face. So, so what I do is things, if they start getting hot and heavy, I allow myself to enjoy the hot and heaviness, because before I was accepting of this diagnosis, that used to scare me. So I used to put like vibes out that I wasn't like enjoying the kiss, because I would be like, oh my God, I have to tell him now he's kissing me. Oh my God, now his hand's on my leg. Like, you'd be so scared, where realistically you just want it to, you want the passion to take over, and you just want it to be a fun experience, because everyone's nervous before a first time with someone else. It's never fucking magical, because you're learning each other and your nerves and stuff. But this is my line. So write it down if you please. I always say, oof, this is getting me very like excited to go to the next step. Or I'll say like, making out with you is definitely making me want to rip your shirt off. That's the type of line I go down. So one, I'm saying that I'm enjoying making out with them, which is always a really amazing thing to hear. Because if you think about it, role reversal, if you're making out with someone and they stop and they go, whew, I really like making out with you, that's an amazing feeling, okay? Two,
for sure.
If they say like, I'm holding back by taking your shirt off, or like, touching you in other sexual ways, two, that's actually asking for consent. And that's being really respectful, right? That's being very respectful, but really in a really sexy way, right? So you're saying to them you enjoy making out. You're then opening up the topic of consent and saying like, I want to rip your shirt off. For me to say that to a guy, obviously their eyes are just going to light up and they're like, oh, you want to take my shirt off? Like you want to get it on? Like, hell yeah. And for a girl, they're going to respond and be like, this guy's so respectful. Like he's clearly holding back. He likes me. He's getting horny as fuck. But now he's opening up that respectful way of saying, Ken, let's have some consent here. Then it leads to, then I say, but there is something that I wanted to chat about, before things got hot and heavy. And then that's when I say, I also then bring it back to me and I say, I'm really strict with protection, because that's the first thing they're going to want to know, right? Because when you're getting hot and heavy with somebody, it's all about protection, no protection. I say, I'm very strict with protection because I've been diagnosed with HSV2, which is the herpes virus, which, currently asymptomatic and I don't have any symptoms for, but it's just something that I always have. So I always, want to tell somebody that I'm really strict with protection. So I'm not saying to them, I'm not making it all about the herpes. I'm making the conversation all about the fact that I myself like to use protection. I'm not saying it in a way that it's like, oh, I have to use protection, otherwise I'm going to give you this really deadly disease. I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying to them, I've been diagnosed with something, but I want to use protection straight up. But then I also just want to recap that I want to use protection because I've had this in the past, and it's that's basically the only thing that's going to make me want to go to the next room with you is if you're okay with the protection. And now I've just also thrown in there the HSV. And then they're like, oh, okay, so you want to use protection, which most guys, they're like, damn it, she wants to use protection because, that's the first thing they think of, right? They're like, nah, damn, okay, she's throwing out the rubber. Well, okay, we'll wear a rubber. But then they go oh yeah, my cousin's got that, or my brother's got that, or oh, don't heaps of people have herpes? Or doesn't everyone have herpes? That's the response I've had. Or they can be oh, what is that? And then it opens up the conversation. I'll be like, oh, it's really common. I've actually got HSV2, which just means that every so often, if I'm really run down or stressed or something like that, I can get an outbreak, which I can take antivirals for. But this is a new sexual relationship, so I'm always going to use protection. But obviously, if things progress with us and we wanted to ever have unprotected sex, that's obviously a different conversation. But right now, I'm really liking making out with you, and I want to take your shirt off. And protection to me is just number one right now. And I tell you right now, I've got a very good success rate.
Hell yeah. That's fucking awesome. That's exactly why I came on this. This is exactly why I agreed to do this episode with you. It's because that conversation is so hard to navigate when you're first learning, and you've just given so many people the blueprint. You've told them about how to do it right before and even during, and that itself is the hardest part because I spent months racking my brain for those answers. I finally reached out to you and I developed my own set of answers to those questions. And honestly, I think your answers are way better. The way you say it and articulate it is just that's so good. And I think every aspect of that, everyone should be knowing that and being that's how to have that positive conversation. It doesn't have to be stigmatized. It just has to be vulnerable and honest.
Yeah. And people and we'll end it on about how sexy vulnerability is. We'll definitely get into that. But, that this whole episode is about dating, okay? And casual sex is another whole topic in itself. And as I said, I'm going to do an episode about that. So if you're trying to think to yourself, oh, but this isn't applicable for a one-night stand, or this isn't applicable for someone I just want to have sex with every week or whatever, they're different conversations to have. And, you should be using protection if you're in that space. But I'm going to be covering all the stuff about that in another episode and sharing my wisdom, because I do go through phases where I'm just I'm not dating for the next 6 months. I'm just going to have fucking casual sex and go wild. Okay. That's a big part of my personality, and I'm allowed to enjoy sex. I'm a sexual being, and I am so accepting of who I am with herpes that I'm allowed to have sex. I do all the right things. And as I said, me being open and honest actually is very sexy to guys. And I find that I feel I have a better success rate with sex because I'm so open and honest, to be fair. But we'll do that episode for sure. This is focused on dating. So do you have any other little gold nuggets you want to share about your experiences with dating, or maybe ways that you've explained to girls?
I mean, I love that you've given that answer before the kiss and during hot and heavy times. Maybe I just throw in my own personal way of how I handle it now that I have a lot more confidence with it and a lot more experience. I generally will say it for the end of a really good date, when I do feel it's I like that you said that about that sexual connection. When I feel we both sort of on the same page, I can feel it's usually a feeling I have if it's sometime between the end of the date where I'm I feel it's progressing to going home, or it's in the Uber on the way, or it's even as we get there. That's when I'm sort of most likely to just have that pretty much that same conversation about making it about, hey, I have this thing. I want you to know about it because I want to be open, honest, and vulnerable. I very strict with my protection as well. I use antivirals. But like just being with you, it's turned me on so much, and I want to see where things go. Like that's sort of my way of going about it. So I think like really that just covers that you can do it at any point. And I was so paralyzed, but like I have to do it at this exact window. But having that in my head, like it's not true. You can do it at any part, depending on how you feel, whatever aligns with your morals. And there's a really good way to go about it, like a really healthy way of communicating. It's all about the healthy communication. And I think Jess has just done a really good way of like describing.
Yeah, thank you. I love sharing this stuff, as you can tell. There's also the fact of like a lot of people ask about in-person versus text message. And you know what? It's okay to do either. You know, I think, you know, I'm predominantly an in-person. I like to do this chat face-to-face. And I feel like you have more, I don't think success is the right word, but I feel like you'll be able to have a more open, in-depth conversation where they're going to be accepting of this diagnosis if you do it face-to-face versus a text, right? Because when you do it on a text, you have to be mindful that roles reverse. What would you do? You would go straight onto Google and write, what is herpes? And, you know, who knows what type of articles you're going to see, or are you going to go into the image search or whatever? That's just going to be confusing for them, where when you're face-to-face, you can kind of talk to them about, you know, what actually is it and stuff like that. So I'm very pro for talking face-to-face. Texting is okay though. And sometimes, as we've mentioned, it's very individualized to the person you're dating, you know, with whatever's going on. And I have done the text one before and it's been successful or not been successful. And it's okay, but just try not to make it like too fucking long. Like don't like ramble and don't say things like, oh, I'm scared, I'm going to give it to you. Because if you say the word, I'm scared, I'm going to give it to you, they're going to be scared now too, because you've just said that you're scared. So now they're scared. So language is very important. Like language is very, very important. You always think role reversal. You know, if I said that way to you, and the word scared and things like that, and, you know, how are you going to respond? So just like have a little bit of a think.
Practice it in the mirror. Just be like, this is, and like even saying it out loud is so powerful, because like herpes is like, herpes, like it's such hushed tones. You say it out loud, you scream it, you're telling yourself in the mirror, you're pretending you're having a conversation. You're just becoming more confident in yourself, just admitting it. Like you're admitting it openly. Like that's something I struggled to do with for months and months. Even for the first year, it was really hard. And now I'm just like, herpes this, herpes that, little herp, like. And
little herp, it just flows off naturally now. And practice with your friends. Like I know a lot of people that haven't even told friends, but yet they want to tell like sexual partners on like a Bumble account before they meet them. Like, dude, tell your friends. Like, honestly, like I've had so many people open up to me, and it breaks my heart when they're like, maybe they're in a bad friend circle, and that, you know, to me, I feel like if I can't open up about having something like herpes to my friends, they're not really quality friends, because you want your friends kind of like with the guy situation or the, you know, next relationship situation, guy or girl, you know, you want those people to be around for those hard times in life. So, you know, you all have different friends. You've got acquaintances and you got your coffee friends, and you want quality friends. And if you're thinking about your friend circle and people that you want to trust and practice and open up with this to, and you don't have those quality friends, you need to find some quality friends. Get yourself out there and find some quality friends, because you should be able to have this conversation about herpes. And if you're scared, just open up to them and have those discussions and have that education moment with them, because they're going to be nothing but open and, you know, respectful that you're telling them. And it's like kind of a good practice. I feel like it's good practice. And if you don't want to talk to them, just fucking talk to me. I'll be your hype girl, okay?
Absolutely. Like you've had such good experiences with your friends, haven't you? Like your friends have been supportive. They've just been like, that's cool. Like that's just part of who Jazz is.
Yep. And I'll definitely, I'll do a whole episode. I'm going to do a whole episode about like, you know, my herpes, you know, journey, whether it's before this episode or now. Just go back and have a look on Spotify and see when I've done it, because I'm in the process of recording all this shit. But if you go back to one of my first episodes I did on Oh Really podcast, there's one called alopecia. And alopecia is basically balding like balding hair, right? And women, it's from a woman's perspective. So basically imagine being a woman and having like male pattern baldness. It's horrific, right? It's a very vulnerable topic to deal with hair loss and being bald and having to wear topper wigs and having a, girls are very attached to their hair. It's a very scary thing. Anyway, the girl that I interviewed, her name's Nikita, and I actually ran away to New South Wales when I got diagnosed, and I'll go through the whole story later. But I ran away because I just wanted to be alone, and I actually practiced on her as my first like random new friend. And so we're at dinner and we had some gnocchi and, and some pizza and some wine. And I said to her, she's a midwife, thankfully, which is why I think I had a little bit extra courage. I was like, oh, I got diagnosed with herpes 3 months ago. And I just I'm really struggling on figuring out how to navigate that and like how to navigate dating and sex. And yeah. And I just threw it out there in a bloody restaurant. And she was like, oh yeah, like I know a little bit about herpes. And she's like, tell me about it. And she's like, oh, I actually got alopecia. I'm fucking balding. And she's like, I put special dye in my hair. She's like, otherwise you see my scalp. And like it takes me like 3 hours to do my hair every week. And yeah, I've got bald patches all over my head. And I'm like, whoa, like, and we just like fully expressed these like crazy vulnerabilities with each other. And then all of a sudden we were just like these tight, like such close friends because we had actually just were so vulnerable with each other. And on that contract, I was like having one night stands, and then I was like dating and having sex and practicing the conversation. I was like, she was my hype girl. And then she started dating a guy, and she was like, she opened up to him about her alopecia. He was fine with it. Like, normally she would try and hide that stuff. And we have grown so much. We reflected as well with that episode. Just how much self-growth we've had from that little conversation in a restaurant to now, because she's a huge advocate in the alopecia world now. She wears topper wigs and she has literally, her TikTok's blowing up. She's changing so many lives. Like she's making so many women in particular feel so like just heard and seen, and she's created community. And it's just like so wild when I look back and I go, oh my God.
I love that. It's that conversation. It's that bringing that vulnerability that connects people. Like, it's crazy. You could open up about herpes and it would open up a discussion about anything. People could be like, I'm going through this mental health crisis. I'm going through this diagnosis. I'm going through troubles at home that they would never tell anyone else. But because you showed the first step to being vulnerable with them, they're going to come back and be vulnerable with you. And that's a beautiful start for a friendship. That's a beautiful start for a relationship. That's where it all starts. And isn't it empowering that we've got our own way to do about, like, avenue to do that through now?
Oh, I love everything you just said there. It's honestly, could not agree anymore. Like vulnerability and, me having herpes as well. And we'll talk about how we feel like, it's not cliche. Like both you and I, and I'll speak for myself first. I am so grateful that I got herpes. I am so grateful because it put me on this path of like really focusing and understanding myself. The whole self-love thing. I know everyone's like, you got to love yourself, the cliche shit. It is so fucking true. It is so true. And because I had that time to like not think about dating and not think about sex and just think about who I was and what I wanted in this world and navigating, then I was kind of like thinking about the type of partner I wanted. And I was like, yeah, I do want a partner that I can just open up about this stuff to. And I learned so much about myself, and it threw me into this journey of like going on that contract, meeting her, like traveling Australia by myself. It opened up this giant world for me, which it's like this domino effect. And now that I'm doing Oh Really podcast, it's because that vulnerability aspect of that I've been so vulnerable and I've thrown myself out there and I've had all these little steps that I've done, and that people are so open to me about their vulnerabilities that I love this space, which is why I created an entire podcast about taboo topics and about being vulnerable. And if I didn't get herpes, I would not be a podcast host. I would not be in any of the career like lines that I'm in now. And I've got like 4 different careers right now. Like my life is fucking cray. But all my jobs that I do, and I'm definitely going to open up more, in the Patreon account about what I do outside of Overly Podcast, because I've been able to surround myself with every single passion of mine, and I just feel so fucking blessed. But this wouldn't happen if I didn't have herpes. So to me, it's a gift, you know, it's a gift because I understand myself. I love myself. Like, as I said, if I get run down or sick and I'm like, oh, little Herpes back. Oh, okay, I've got to take care of myself because I am prone to burn out because I'm so fucking excited about life that I do burn out sometimes. And little Herp comes out to be like, hey, Jess, could you get some more sleep and just take some vitamins, please? And I'm like, oh, thank you for reminding me so much, little Herp. And then I just look after myself and I'm sweet again. You know, I'm grateful.
Absolutely. That's the best attitude you can have. You can have anything, but it's all about perspective at the end of the day and what you make with what you have. And you've made some awesome things. I wouldn't even be here talking to you if you didn't get herpes. So I'm grateful as well. And yeah, like, look how far you've come. Like, that's so cool.
But also yourself as well. You know, you've been traveling the world by yourself for so long now. No, I only just figured out you're in Canada recently because you're in Africa and then you're in somewhere else and then you're in the UK. And then, you know, to do that and to have that type of life and that, like, I guess, independence to be like, I want to go fucking travel the world by myself and I'm going to go make all these friends over here and do this adventure and do this. And then I'm going to go on a podcast. Like, you have had so much self-growth.
Thank you so much. That's really nice of you to say. And like, throughout this journey, I've gotten more and more confidence with it, met people from all different types of like cultures around the world and been able to, you know, test it, become more confident myself and in the way I connect with people and the way I explain this diagnosis to people and what it means. But I think there's just been, like, you said it and I was like, oh, okay, we'll see how it actually goes. But you're like, you look at how you are before this podcast and you do it and how you are after. And I'm already so much more pumped up about life and just like how I feel about myself, my confidence in myself. Like, I thought I was confident in myself before, but like now, holy shit, game changer.
When you spoke to me back in 2022, you were a different person. Like, you were, like, the way you texted, you know, very reserved, very shy. And then, you know, obviously traveling and stuff is always going to expand, you know, the way you are and the way you see the world and self-growth and stuff. So that's already amazing. But I think, you know, navigating the herpes into that world and then looking at you now, even just like when we were voice memoing to talk about the podcast and just having chats and stuff, I was like, you just put such confident energy and fun energy and you thrive on life and people see that. And I mean, that's what I explained to you as well, is that after this podcast, I go, just wait. People are going to see your energy. And it's not about herpes. It's about being powerful and being vulnerable is a super strength because you are going to have people feel your energy and feel the difference in you because it happened to me and you already had this crazy growth. And after these 2 episodes that we've done, you're literally going to, I don't know how you're going to sleep tonight, FYI, but also you just got to wake up tomorrow and just be like, I fucking love life. Like, you are.
Yeah. I could barely sleep last night. I was like, oh, so it's like nervous, excited, and like now I'm just like, well, I'm so wired right now. I'm going to be thinking about this all night long.
Yep, you're a changed man. And I think great way to end the podcast by saying how it is a very sexy trait to be vulnerable because just like this, right? You become confident. You love yourself. You're all about your own vibes. You be like, do I actually like you? Nah. And if I do like you and you accept me, okay, let's do this. Like, you know, it's about you and your life and your choices in this world. So being vulnerable out there is sexy. Like, I'm putting sexy vibes out left, right, and center. Like, and I know that I'm putting those vibes out. And even just preparing to do this series, I've noticed a shift in my energy. And guys are gravitating towards me like real bad recently. And I think not real bad, it's actually real good, but as in like it's overwhelming because I'm actually putting out all this real positive, like confident energy because I've been organizing this series with you and it's given me like this fire in my belly. And honestly, I've got all these dates left, right, and center. It's been a fun time.
There we go. They're knocking down your door. You fight them off with a stick and every other cliche in the book.
Yep. It's because I love myself. And that's the takeaway. That's the takeaway.
People can see it. People notice it. And it's just like how you feel about yourself. And yeah, I just hope everyone listening is like really gotten the taste of that and they can feel the way we feel because that's what we want. We want other people to feel the way we do. We don't want to fit them. you to feel like the way we felt at the start, because no one is alone. Everyone's got their individual experiences, but there's such a community out there. There's so many people who are the same, and like there's so much to learn about it. It's really cool.
So good. And guys, as I said, there is so much to cover in this space. I want to be doing casual sex ones. I want to be doing, first date. Like honestly, my mind is in overdrive of how many different, segments going to be breaking up into this, the herpes series. So just stay tuned and just like listen to them all, share them with your friends. Give me a 5-star review. Every time it goes up, it literally makes my heart so full. So like, give me a 5-star review and add me on social media, Oh Really Podcast. And reach out to me because like, honestly, I love talking about this stuff. And if you want to reach out to Lochee, just like, I'll flick his details to you. Just reach out to me and say, love that episode. I want to talk to Lochee, and I'll hook you guys up.
Sweet. Absolutely. I'd be happy to chat to anyone who wants to chat. I'm always down.
So good. All right, everybody. That's the end of the episode. And I hope you feel as, wired and excited as we are. I feel like they will be.
Thanks so much for having me, Jess.
All right. Bye.